Hello, I am Paul Marker, and I am here to talk to you about sensitivity analysis and capital budgeting. This is just a very short, simple, practical guide to merging these two concepts using the sensitivity analysis tool while you are doing your capital budgeting process. A simple definition of sensitivity analysis is a method of determining how uncertain variables could impact particular aspects of an operation. Oh, skip that, sorry. So how it works. While you're doing your sensitivity analysis, you will find a project. You'll determine the key variables of said project. These could be also known as dependent variables. After you've determined your dependent variables, you're going to determine any independent variables or uncertain variables for the project. These might be related to the dependent variables, but they could be unrelated. They don't have to be related to all of the variables. So they could be unrelated to some. They're definitely going to be connected to some of the variables, but may not be connected to all of the variables. After you've identified key and uncertain variables, you're going to identify how these variables will impact each other and how they will impact your business. This could be impacts in costs, time, operations. There's lots of ways it could impact your business. There's no one way these things could impact each other. A basic example that we're going to use to explain this a little bit maybe more clearly is a small business is selling and shipping products to customers. Some dependent or key variables would be the cost of goods, cost of shipping, and shipping materials. These are what the company has decided, or what the company has set as dependent variables so that they can run their business. Some independent or uncertain variables would be the supplier's source, the shipping market, the shipping prices. Any of these independent variables could fluctuate, which could impact the company's ability to operate and sell and ship goods to customers. So these are just some possible ways that these dependent variables could be impacted by the independent variables. Sales lists, you may need to, if sales are delayed, you may have to have a backup in orders, which would create a deferred revenue pool, which may impact your cost-income ratio. Shipping market, shipping prices, again, that could impact your cost-income ratio, which could affect your bottom line and maybe impact your prices as well. Moving on to capital budgeting. This is a simple definition. This is the process of determining a company's projects based on how they will benefit the company's future. Now, if you're a construction company and you have 10 possible construction projects, you may need to do this capital budgeting process multiple times throughout a quarter. If you're a legal firm, maybe you just need to do it once a quarter to determine office spaces or employee situations. Either way, this is a 5-stage process. Identify possible projects. Again, depending on which company you're working in will depend on how often or what these projects may include. After you've identified possible projects, you're going to develop a potential cost list for said projects. This is a great place to start doing your sensitivity analysis, and we'll get into an example of how that will happen later. But after you've done a basic potential costs for said projects, you're going to select and reject projects, execute the projects, and then audit and monitor as you proceed forward. Each of these, whatever project you decide to go with, will fall under one of these 4 categories, these 4 consideration zones: expansions, diversification, modernization, and replacements. These are all areas that companies need to consider as they move forward, as their business expands. If everything's working properly, they probably don't need to worry about replacements. But definitely expansion and diversification are things and modernization are definitely things that should be considered on a routine basis. All right, so now for a simple example of using the tool of sensitivity analysis with capital budgeting. The example we're going to go with is renovating a small business, or renovating business spaces. Could be small, could be big, doesn't matter. Again, these are the 5 steps. You're going to identify possible projects. Is this going to be a complete overhaul? Is this going to be just a simple handicap accessibility overhaul? Maybe this is just going to be a bathroom overhaul. Whatever is needed with the renovation, you're going to evaluate all levels. You're going to see what is needed, what is not needed, what the company needs, and you're going to go through this process to determine the final need of the company. And then during development, potential costs, you're going to look at, this is where the sensitivity analysis begins. You're going to look at the dependent variables, independent variables. Again, not all independent variables will impact every dependent variable, and maybe some independent variables will have multiple impacts, multiple different types of impacts for your company. So safety codes, this is a very dependent variable, something that every company needs to meet. Not a lot of independent variables, although you could throw in lawmakers if there was an unusual situation where lawmakers decided to make new laws. Is the renovation critical or not to safety codes? Inspections, not a lot of independent variables for that. Everybody needs to make sure that inspections, their materials, businesses are up to code. Impacts, pretty straightforward. Is your business going to be able to operate or not? And so I left that one off the list. All right, so now down to cost of materials. Sources. Is it coming from far away? Is it close by? Is it a source that is in abundance, or is it a rare source? Whatever is needed for the renovation. That is, depending on type of sources and frequency or rarity, is definitely going to impact your gross cost of the project. Cost of labor. The independent variable for this is the company that is chosen. There's a lot of companies out there that could do a renovation for a business. Depending on the labor time and the quality of the work will depend on which company a business may decide to go with for the renovation. And all of these things will definitely impact your business, how you're able to execute your business, the cost required for the renovation, and so on. So after doing a sensitivity analysis, the initial renovating of business spaces has been fine-tuned down to renovating just the entry doors through Company X with safety codes as the standard. Renovating business doesn't do a lot of, doesn't generate a lot of revenue, but it may be required to bring in new customers. So in the end, it is something that needs to be done for business to continue to operate. And then finally, ongoing audits of the situation and monitoring of the renovation so that everything is done well and your business continues to thrive. In summary, this was a very short, practical guide to the sensitivity analysis tool, how it can be incorporated into capital budgeting, and how capital budgeting is used to determine the best project, the best way forward for your company. Here's a list of sources. Thank you for your time.